Good afternoon, everyone. This is Scott Elliott. First, I want to thank everyone who registered and joined in for this webinar. This was an all-time record response for a SPAN lunchtime webinar. Again, thank you. I see the count going up as we speak, so that's been wonderful. In addition, I wish to thank SPAN for hosting, facilitating, and co-presenting the webinar with us. Alice Honeycutt, also, whose idea it was to develop this new program that utilizes the state SILs in collaboration with DVRS, and also to Melanie O'Day, who was instrumental in consulting and assisting the development of the curriculum. I think we had a wonderful team that included SIL directors who worked together to create this new and unique program that was over a year in the making. We also had a wonderful team who put this webinar together. Background for everyone. SILs are community-based organizations whose boards and staff are made up of people with disabilities. We traditionally offer core services under federal and state grants that include information referral, advocacy, both individual and systems, peer support, and independent living skills instruction. We have been working in hundreds of schools statewide over the past 10 years. Transition and employment preparedness has developed into one of our strongest services and support mechanisms. Now, to introduce our presenters today. Of course, Carolyn Hayer from SPAN introduced herself. Again, she's the co-director, Parent Training and Information Center, and Technical Assistant Coordinator. Quite a long title. And then we have Alice, who's going to come up right after me. Alice Honeycutt, New Jersey DVRS Director, formerly the Director of Transition with SPAN. We have Melanie O'Day, Special Education Consultant, formerly with NJDOE, OSEP, Office of Special Education. Myself, I'm the Executive Director of the Progressive Center for Independent Living. Renee Fobb is with us today as a presenter. She's on our staff here. She's the Transition Supervisor. And Luke Kopish is joining us. He's from the Alliance Center for Independence. He's the Deputy Director. Both Renee and Luke have been in the trenches for years now, working with the schools, with the students, families, etc., VR counselors in our transition programs. So now I'm going to turn it over to Alice.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be part of this presentation today. This webinar is a program overview of the tiered services developed for students while they are still in school. And the pilot includes a mechanism for students to link to the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services and receive some active services prior to graduation. Now, I support this program concept for two reasons. First, when the Workforce Investment Act is reauthorized, and rumor actually has it that it will be authorized sometime in the next 6 to 8 months, the law increases expectations to provide vocational rehabilitation services to students while they are still in school as a priority. This pilot is a way to get our feet wet, so to speak, with a number of pilot schools and develop a process that makes sense and is not too overwhelming for everyone. And second, the independent living community is an underutilized resource that far too many students never access. And so this is an early intervention approach to ensure students are connected to a resource that they can utilize throughout their entire lives. I'm very excited to be a part of it. I've looked at the curriculum. I'm going to now turn it over, I think, to Melanie to talk a little bit about that, and then we'll move forward with the presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Melanie. I'm really happy that you all could be here, and I'm glad that I've been a part of this project. I have retired from the New Jersey Department of Education in the Office of Special Ed and worked around students of all ages and varying abilities throughout my tenure there. I had the opportunity to work with Scott Elliott and his staff and the SILs in looking at how to best provide some opportunities for students to participate in the transition process. Just to let you know, some of the basics of this is that transition planning is required and mandated through the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which states that it must begin for students with disabilities at the age of 16. However, the state of New Jersey, through the Office of Special Ed, have required that we begin at the age of 14. So we know that it's important for our students to be a part of this process, to begin to think about their transition to adult life. The IEP is required to reflect that at the age of 14 in New Jersey, where we begin to have our discussion, we begin to have consideration of school outcomes. At the age of 16, it becomes much more in-depth, begin to really look at the connections students need to make, what their school programs should really look like, even though we also do that at 14. And what I like so much about this program, It's All About Work, is those discussions are there. The transition specialists here at the SILs really work with the students to talk them through that, to understand their IEP, to begin to consider what they need to talk about. And it's important. I see we have some students here, and I'm so excited you're there. We want you to be advocates for yourself. We want you to really work on that transition process, and really important for parents to be there as well in making decision-making regarding their transition to adult life. Okay, now I believe I will turn it over to Scott. Renee and Luke are going to do the further presentation.
Yep. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Alice. We're going to do a sound check a little later on between Renee and Luke because he's now on. Let's move along. Next slide.
Let's see, can we just do this? Oh, it's going automatically.
We did it. Carolyn, can you help us? It's starting automatically. Can you back that up?
No,
So,
it's going.
Yeah, I'll try, but we may have to just play around with it. It seems to have a life of its own.
okay.
Okay, it looks like
I think it stopped.
Okay.
All right, thank you. And again, to move along, we do want to save some time for questions, certainly. This first bullet, and you'll hear more about the two tiers as we move forward. But just a little background for developing this program is years of experience and success has helped shape this new program, now with an enhanced focus on employment readiness at an even earlier age. Bullet 2, again, it's a statewide program designed, as we mentioned, by the SILs and New Jersey DVRS with input from our group, Melanie included. What makes this program unique is the process starts sooner. Everyone agrees, of course, that the earlier the better when it comes to transition provision. Getting students engaged with DVRS to have their cases open and to receive applicable services before leaving school is new and can mean graduating students will not have a gap after school awaiting for services and opportunities. The curriculum incorporates this next bullet for the curriculum. Melanie was very instrumental in helping us develop that. Our program curriculum, has been developed to also encompass some of the common core state standard information. Again, Melanie was instrumental in assisting with this aspect of the curriculum. Okay, next slide. This strength-based student profile will be covered a little bit more later on. This profile will be shared with school personnel. This is an additional note. And DVRS, and is meant to aid with the transition planning and preparedness before and after high school. We feel this is a very important tool. Again, it was developed over the year, almost year and a half of development time that we put into the project. The next bullet, I just want to back that up a little bit. The SILs are in great position to continue partnering with these young adults through independent living grants and the SILs receive annually. We will continue working with these young adults after their transition from school and run out of service when they run out of service from DVRS or other service providers. When the students stay connected or reconnect with us, we offer many free services and supports that will help them be independent in their communities. That's a really, really important piece and a benefit that goes along with the program, but of course is after the program, after that fee-for-service period ends. And again, we want to highlight the differences, or we want to highlight what makes the program new, I should say. So, and we've underlined before they graduate high school. Some examples of the services would be our a la carte menu of services and others that the DVRS counselors deem applicable. These services can also apply after graduation, of course. Eligibility requirements. This is a significant change to the DVRS transition process that allows students to get a much earlier start to DVRS counseling and be eligible for various services at an earlier point in their lives. I think that's, and we wanted to really highlight these particular points.
Okay, this is Renee Pfaff from the Progressive Center for Independent Living, and I am going to share some information with you on slide 5. Why is transition planning so important? We all know that we've been going through transition since we were very young. We all know that we've had very difficult times, and usually our goal is to have a very successful outcome out of it. That is why we think it's so very important to start this at a nice young age for these students. To be successful in transition, I've learned over the years that there are certain factors that are very important. Number one is time. We have to give them plenty of time to get the focus and the goal ready. The other one is planning and understanding their desired outcome. And of course, another factor is knowing the resources that are out there to help them and support them. That's why we are encouraging high schools to get involved with your Centers for Independent Living, allowing us to come in and provide transition assistance, because as soon as possible, so we can start planting the seeds, for there is so much to learn and do. We know it's a very confusing time for these students and for families. There is a lot of different focuses now. Not only are students trying to figure out what they want to do immediately after high school, they now have to start planning for their entire life. All right, back into why transition is so important. We have to remember that these individuals that are leaving high school are so used to having a lot of things planned for them. They have a lot of things entitled to them, and now they're going out to the adult world where they have to now find what type of services they're going to be eligible for. What agencies are there. So that is why I think the Centers for Independent Living Transition Program can really help them start with the development of that roadmap that's going to give them some really good structure on what to do next.
Okay, why utilize the services of a SIL? I'm going to highlight a few things here. We're mandated as community organizations. SILs work with individuals, family members, and friends to fashion long-term relationships that will support consumers with achieving their various goals. The IL philosophy is all about consumer choice and control, and through support and services, SILs promote and reinforce that thinking and practice. The next bullet. The SILs have ties to many, many, many organizations. Over the years, we haven't been traditionally a true specific service provider because we offer so many things. I think back to relationship building is what we're all about to help folks. A huge element of the SILs activity is being connected with consumers to assist them in navigating the many paths of the system that includes advocacy as a primary focus of the SILs. SILs are advocacy-based. When I say that, most of the things, services we provide and supports involve advocacy at some point. So that's really important to remember. And let's see, I think I have one more slide here. I was ready to hand it over, but that's too premature. A little background is the SILs, and I forget if I've mentioned this, we actually started years ago. This is not the same program, of course, with the Systems Improvement Grant, but we've received co-funding from DOE, OSEP, and DVR over about 8 years. Um, Again, this was the foundation for this program, for this new program and fee-for-service model. These entities who were funding us, co-funding us, expected us to create a fee-for-service program to replace that grant program and put much more emphasis on pre-vocational and job readiness activities. So, again, an important part I've probably hit on already, and we're going to hit on maybe some more after on this next bullet after the current fee-for-service period is complete. This is an extremely important role that only SILS can offer over such a long period of time. Staying connected to deliver assistance to individuals is always our goal. There is also a partial state IL match to some of the federal funds, through DVRS. So again, we're there for the long haul. We emphasize that quite a bit. We're there for the lifespan, offering all kinds of other services. So now let me pass this on to Luke, and I believe Renee and Luke, you guys want to do a sound check. Luke, can you hear us?
I can hear you, Scott.
Okay,
Can you hear
great.
me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So Luke, you're on.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. My name is Luke. I work for the Alliance Center for Independence. We cover Union, Middlesex, and Somerset counties. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our the two levels of Tier 1 and Tier 2 of our high school programs as part of the It's All About Work. Like I said, there's two levels of coursework related to It's All About Work. Tier 1, this is really designed for high school students ages 14 and up to begin really identifying their future goals and planning for life after high school, okay? We help them decide what their interests are. We help them decide, look at what they like to do, after school. Just sort of give them a sense of planning and what they should be looking forward to when they graduate. Tier 2 is designed really to assist students with disabilities ages 16 and up. This is more about career exploration, talk about their preferences. We talk about the world of work, or in some cases schooling or college or trade school. We also introduce them to the adult service system, what services are available in the community when they graduate, and in some cases before they graduate. Next slide. Tier 1, planning for adult life, introductory course. Like I said, it's geared for students, high school students ages 14 and up. It's an 8 sessions course. What we've been doing we work with 2 schools in Edison. We're working with a school over the summer in Montgomery Township, Somerset County, and we're also working in Colonial High School. But the course, each session runs about 45 minutes to 50 minutes so far. The Colonial High School runs an hour. There's 10 to 12 students in each of the classes that we work with. And we really are, this is something that the Tier 1 and Tier 2 are classes that we are working with the school. So it's a contract with the school that we're doing, okay? So some of the topics would include career searching. We talk about resume writing. We practice interview skills. We do a lot with just follow things like skills such as following directions and listening skills, just to give the students a sense of what they were going to be expecting of them when they do go out in the workplace. Some of the soft skills that we also emphasize. So part of the program is a 1 to 2 hour presentation that we give to parents and families. Just introducing the class, introducing the course, just introducing what this is all about. Let's go on to the next slide. Like we said, the components include student self-discovery. We do interest and learning style profiles. Um, we talk about the transition planning process and how they're involved in the process. That's something that we emphasize. Um, we also talk about, like I said, talk about careers and what sort of career that they would like to go into, career exploration. Um, it can take many forms. Um, Understand the importance of interpersonal social skills, as I mentioned, working together, working as a team, um, development of strengths-based student transition profile. This is important. We have all the students fill this out, and this is something that um, DVR would use to ascertain what skills, what experiences, um, what what are some of the things that the students need to work on before they graduate, just to give DVRS some indication of what the student, his or her experiences are. Um, and then we make referrals to DVRS. Um, this is a way for them to really um, you know have a seamless stream into DVR and get that process going. Tier 2, like I said, Tier 1 is geared for students age 14 and up. Okay, Tier 2 is more involved with students 16 and up. Okay, this is a 10 session course. Again, same time frame, 45 minutes to an hour, 12 students per course, and it is something that we are contracted, we work out with the school itself to do this. Again, there is a family and parent presentation that we conduct, again, for the students to, the parents to be informed of what this process is all about, what the course is all about, and what their children will be learning. Okay, some of the components of Tier 2, interest attitudes, learning style profiles, interest inventories. We give the students getting an understanding and preparing for the world of work. And really, some of this is a reality check for a lot of students. But we have all kinds of websites and tools to teach about certain occupations or careers. So some students will become disillusioned after learning about a career, that choice they made, but then they go on to another choice that they think they want to pursue, and it's all part of the learning process. We talk about independent living skills. We talk about using transportation. We talk a little bit about Medicaid and some of the other services and resources are available in the community when they do graduate. We include in our instruction about goal planning, how to achieve those goals, how what steps are needed, what supports are needed. Okay, and again we have the strengths-based transition student transition profile. Okay, and then we make referrals to DVRS. We've actually had counselors from DVRS come into our class, in the winter time. So that's something that we often have done for both tiers. So they are able to meet the counselors and just get a sense of what DVRS does when, and what to expect when they, after this program and when they graduate. Okay.
Okay, I'll take over
So
from there.
me.
Thanks, Luke.
That's it for me.
All right, as Luke has mentioned, that the Tier 1 and Tier 2 is a very valuable program. These tiers are both hosted at the school. We've been very accommodating when we host the programs. We've run it during the actual program school session, during as one of the subjects would be taught, we could run during that. We've also worked with Child Study Team and had groups come up down there and meet, and we've even done it after school. So you can work, and the SILs are very flexible with that. Now, another very unique portion of this program is our a la carte service. As you heard Alice state, the goal for DVR is to get established with the students as early as possible. So DVR is piloted with the SILs to get a jump start on services for high school students. Their goal is to establish a relationship to give these students a running start earlier on, which can result in improved career outcomes. The a la carte services were developed by the Centers for Independent Living, and they're developed as job readiness skill training. They're designed to narrow in on specific areas of need, which could cause a barrier to employment. When we are working with the student, we become more familiar with them so we can start understanding what services they can benefit from. We also talk to the students themselves along with staff personnel, and we get some feedback. Then when the student does go off to DVR to open up a case, we can then share this information with the DVR counselor. Now, the DVR counselor is the ultimate person that determines which services would be appropriate for them, if any at all, but they are the ones that make the ultimate determination. Now, on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more of the a la carte services. Oops, I went too far. Sorry about that. All right. These a la carte services are important to distinguish them from the Tier 1 and Tier 2. A la carte services are almost all individually based. We're going to be working with that student one-on-one. This is going to occur after they complete either Tier 1 and or Tier 2. If they're 16 years of age or older and have been referred to DVR and deemed eligible for services. Once they're deemed eligible for services, the DVR counselor may feel that the individual can benefit from one of our a la carte services. Now, these services can be offered in an array of settings. We can offer them right here at our SILs. We can be open to working back in the school and offering it to them as well, or in the community. We've gone to libraries to work with individuals. We could do that as well. What you're going to find with these a la carte services are that they're related to the career selection, job search, and adjustment to work. As I stated earlier, they are all one-on-one except for two. Now, the next slide is going to list all the services. As you see, there are 13, all but working well with a disability, and the Employment Job Club are going to be one-on-one based. The other two I just mentioned are in a small group format. Okay, what else do I want to see? Now, I don't have the time to go through each one of these, so what we have done for you is if you look on the main website on this webinar, on your right, you're going to see an attachment on the services. You can download that at your convenience and have the opportunity to read through all those. But again, they're job readiness, type of skill training, and our goal is to, once they go through our training, they can go back to DVR prepared, have a sound understanding of what they want to go for, what type of job, or understand what type of training they may need for this job.
And just an added note, these are all DVRS approved services.
Okay, now we're going to go to the next slide, and Luke's going to talk about the parent role.
Okay, thanks, Renee. Obviously, parents have a huge role in the process for the child who's in transition, and the roles are highlighted here. Encourage your child to make age-appropriate decisions and choices as early as possible. Okay, it's important to allow him or her to make mistakes. And we emphasize this transition is a lifelong process. What a child may think about what he or she wants to do at 16 is going to change by 17, by 18. But we try to help them on the path and try to investigate and explore those choices. And some like we were saying, some are just going to be dismissed after a while, and some are going to be more pursued and looked at more thoroughly. Planning for your child's future must begin as early as possible. Okay, 14 is what transition age is the age for transition in New Jersey. So it's good to have a parent role in that process. The entitlements that exist while your child is in school will end as soon as he or she graduates or ages out of the education system. Okay. As an adult, your child will have to apply and be found eligible for some services. It's not given. So, and I think that's a crucial role for independent living centers to help, parents with, getting their child eligible or applying for services, outside, in the community once school ends. So it's a complicated process. It's overwhelming, but we're here to help out. Okay. You and your child should be as familiar as possible with agencies and organizations that can provide necessary services. Agencies and entities other than your child's schools will be involved in the child's planning. Okay. Every supports and services need to be tailored to meet your child's needs. Okay. There's no one size fits all, so that's very important. And basically, parents need to be their child's advocate, and that's very important. And eventually, children become young adults, and they become their own advocates as well. Um, Moving on to the next slide. Combine the information and guidance agencies provide along with your knowledge to make informed choices with your child. This is very important, okay? Do not assume that professionals always know what's best for your child. Again, you are your child's advocate, and you know best what services and what programs are best for your child. Do not assume that because your child has a disability, there will always be a program to meet his or her needs, okay? Or that there will always be a professional to make decisions, okay? So you need to be a partner in your child's future, okay? And help him or her, become an advocate for himself or herself. That's very important. All sorts of community-based networks, which include family, friends, religious organizations, other services, other non-disability organizations are there, okay? Utilize them, use them, ask questions, okay? Participate in IEP meetings, okay? Especially at the age of 14 and thereafter to ensure it reflects the goals and objectives related to transition to adult life. A lot of kids are not involved in the IEP. They should be. They should be, especially when they're older, especially when they're approaching graduation. They should be more involved. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they don't know what's taking place. So that should be an important part of transition is getting your child to be more involved in IEP, and state his or her concerns and articulate his needs, especially when they graduate, especially in the transition process. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. All right, as you heard, we've been talking about the Tier 1 and Tier 2 for high school students, but we didn't want to forget about those individuals who are past the age of 21 and who are still struggling. So we've developed a program called It's All About Work for Adults, Planning for Employment for Adults. Now, all you high school personnel, you know a few individuals, I'm sure, who graduated a few years ago and just have not been successful in gaining employment. And I'm sure there's some parents out there that can relate as well. You're worried that your son or daughter just aren't quite up to gear, not finding out what they want to do with the rest of their life. If you believe that they require some more help, I definitely would urge you to contact one of the SILs or DVR and ask about planning for employment for adults. This particular service is going to run in a small group setting, and we're going to work weekly with them. And it's going to be focusing on identifying life goals. They're all going to be related to work and how to plan for them. DVR would be finding, when DVR works with an individual and they find that the individual is not quite sure what they want to do, what route to follow, they might refer them to us for this particular program. Once they go through this program, they'll be able to identify their wants, their needs, and be more successful in gaining employment. Now, another service that we provide is, you've seen this before in the other slide, is all a la carte menu of service. Just like students who've gone through our Tier 1 and Tier 2, adults also have the opportunity to go through these 13 services that we provide. Again, they're mostly one-on-one services except for the 2, and these services are targeted to specific needs, honing on skills for success in the world of work. All of these services are going to be referred, the individuals will be referred to us through the DVR counselor. And again, if you want any more information about the a la carte services, the descriptions are available to you to download from the screen here. Now, I know we want to save some time for questioning, so we wanted to give you, contact us if you had any other specific questions. You have the New Jersey Silk website right here. You also have a New Jersey Silk contact sheet you can download right from the webinar. Scott Elliott, the director from Progressive Center's phone number and email along with mine. And we also listed Luke's from Alliance Center for Independence. So please feel free to contact us after the webinar with any questions. All right, I'm going to now allow Carolyn to gather up some questions so we can hopefully have answers for.
Okay, well, first off, let me thank Scott, Renee, and Luke for a wonderful presentation, as well as to thank Alice Honeycutt and Melanie O'Day for their remarks prior to the presentation. I think it's been a very informative session. We have collected a number of questions from the chat box. Again, you can still type your questions into the chat box. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Any of our presenters can respond. So the first question is, what are the costs of this program and who pays for them?
I mean, I can answer this question. This is Luke. If you're referring to Tier 1 and Tier 2, which I spoke about before, Tier 1, it's 8 sessions, and that's $1,200. And then Tier 2 is $1,500 for 10 sessions, and that's something that the school pays for, and that the services are provided through the SIL, okay, which if it's Middlesex, Union, or Somerset counties, that would be the Alliance where I work for. And yes, it can be completed during the extended school year. And yes, there is an established curriculum that we did put together.
And again, just to add to Luke, that's where if you go to the Silk website or have ask us the questions, because each Silk covers from one county up to 3 counties, and again, those costs are to the school. And part of the layout of this program was for potentially not to have the VR counselors, if they deem them eligible for service, to open their case and even refer back to us for the a la carte menu of services. Okay, next.
Okay, so I think you already touched on this. Is this a program that can be completed during the extended school year? And what would be the best way to go ahead and do that if possible?
I'll answer that, and absolutely. We've done that in the past for some other transition programs. Yes, we work 12 months a year, so we would be available for extended school year as well.
Great. The next question is there an established curriculum for this program?
Yes, there is. The Centers for Independent Living have been working together. We established it, we changed it, modified it, but all the SILs have access to this same curriculum.
Okay, thank you, Renee. And a popular question is, how can I access these services? So a little bit of detail, step by step. What is the process that either students, parents, or school staff, or even other professionals would take to access this program?
Yeah, I think I can answer that question. This is Scott. Well, it obviously depends on where we are with ages. I know the SILs have been meeting with schools as well as the DVRS counselors' offices, but how to access it can work in various ways. I don't want to take too much time here, but it can work in various ways. Schools can reach out to the centers. So schools can reach out to the centers to access services, and then we work together with the schools usually for the group sizes and how many groups for either tier 1 or 2. A student could reach out to the center or the school to initiate something. A parent could reach out to the school and or the SIL to initiate something. VR counselors come into play obviously as individuals complete the tiers, so there's even a possibility of referrals back. So accessing the services can happen in many different ways for many different people.
Just wanted to mention that on your right-hand side of your screen, there's the PowerPoint, the menu and services, and there is a contact list of all the SILs throughout the state that would be working with your county. So those would be the SILs that you would contact.
Yes.
Just wanted to.
Thanks, Melanie. And that said, however, I'll throw a however in there after the webinar. It would be okay for you to contact myself, Renee, or Luke as well, since we've been part of the committee, part of the webinar team, etc. But yes, like Melanie said, there's SILs that cover 1 to 3 counties. That obviously includes family addresses as well as school districts, etc., and DVRS local offices. Next.
Okay, great. You guys are rolling along. Question, could the cost of these services, or when would it be appropriate for the cost of these services to be included in a young adult's DD budget?
This is Scott. This is currently not a DD program. This is, as we've said, there's a small portion that we've asked the schools to be responsible for while the students are in school for the tiers 1 and 2 completion, and then it moves on to DVRS as if there's services that are applicable or appropriate for those individuals. DVRS will be paying for those services if the DVRS counselor obviously is open to case, eligible for services, all the right words, and refer folks back to the centers for those particular services, or others if there's other services the DVRS counselor deems applicable. So it's not, I didn't mean to go on too long, but it's not a DD program currently, and Alice could clarify this probably better than me. DDD is referring folks over to DVR at this time, or a lot of folks, I should say, over to DVRS at this time.
This is Alice, and Scott, that is correct information. But that was a great question, and I think moving forward, one of the things the core team has been discussing is to talk with the Division of Developmental Disabilities to identify parts of the curriculum that might be extraordinarily appropriate for individuals to have prior to even coming through to the DVRS. So it's a great question, and I think more to come on that as this pilot gets more sustainable and really gets established throughout the state.
Great. Thank you. Next question. You mentioned the strength-based student transition profile in your presentation. Can we get a copy of that?
We can give the outline.
You want to take that?
Yes, we can share the outline for that. I believe that's what we've done. We have outlines for the tiers, obviously, and we do have an outline for that student-based transition profile.
And all the components that are included within that.
Yes.
So reach out to your...
And as a yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say that.
Yeah. Just reach out to Scott,
Yeah.
and he could share that with you.
Because again, I think that's a very important tool that we've developed through a lot of resources and a lot of time that's going to help anyone working with the students through their transition process.
And the next question is, what is the profile, if there is one, of a student who would be appropriate for these services?
I guess I can answer that one. This is Renee. We are working with an array of individuals with various abilities and disabilities. We work in a fashion where we can adapt our curriculum to meet anyone's needs. I would say a lot of the individuals when we work with, the first of the questions the teachers and I speak about is that person wanting to and able to work once they graduate? I think that's the most appropriate because we have to remember once they complete Tier 1 and or Tier 2, to receive a la carte services, they do have to be referred to DVR and found eligible for services. So someone who is willing and capable of getting competitively employed would be an appropriate person.
Yes, I think to add to that, there's a few individuals or pieces in place to help with looking at that student's profile. And for starting with school staff to our staff to DVRS, of course. And that's what's nice about the program also is we have a few folks that are really looking at that individual's profile to really see where they're at and see what is needed moving forward.
Yeah, if I can jump in, I'm sorry. This is Luke again. I think what Renee was saying is correct, that we modify the curriculum, we modify things. We stick with the curriculum, but we modify how it's being taught. And we often come up with activities or just lessons just to, so everyone is going to be learning the class. And as far as the a la carte menu, we definitely modify. We work individually with people. We adapt to their style of learning. We adapt to their disability. We adapt it to their strengths. And so it's a unique program because we take the individual into consideration when we go in for a lesson and we start teaching a class. And the concepts are all the same, but we adapt it in order for them to, able to learn it on their own level.
Okay. You may have noticed we put another slide up, but we are going to continue with questions. Thank you. Go ahead, Carolyn. I'm sorry.
Carolyn?
I apologize. I was on mute talking, but on mute. So, we have time for maybe one more question, but before I pose that question to you, I'd just like to remind folks, if your question was not asked and answered, that you can reach out to your local SIL or to any of our presenters today. Their contact information has been provided. We will be sending the link to the recording to all of the registered participants so that you will have an opportunity to replay or re-listen to the presentation today. Again, please stay on the line if you're joining us via computer. We're going to have one more question, some closing comments, and then we will be ending the webinar. Again, I want to thank all of our presenters today for wonderful information. If you take a look at our poll, many of the folks who joined us today, 23% said that they were familiar with the program, and that almost 77% were not. So we do hope that this information was useful to you. And again, you can download the contact information for all of the SILs across the state, as well as today's presentation, as well as the outline for the tiers, which really answers that curriculum question. It is located on the right side of your screen. So thank you again, and we will close out with this last question, which is, and any final comments from our presenters, if there is an extended interest in this project, how will you meet the demand given there are so many students in need of this type of service and a limited amount of resources to provide that?
This is Alice, and I'll take the first stab at that while everybody else is conjecturing an answer. And again, it's a great question. It goes to the whole notion that there is a lot of need out. And again, that's probably one reason why the Workforce Investment Act has really put a lot of issuance around transition services. I think at this point, since it is a pilot, I think it'd be a wonderful problem to have. As we move forward, and you're absolutely right, there are limited resources. So when it gets to the point that it is so big that it needs to be expanded in other ways, I'm sure that we'll be joining together and discussing ways that it can be pushed out even in better ways so all students are touched. And I'm going to throw it out to someone else to answer now, too.
I think you answered it, Alice. This is Scott, everybody. Yeah, and actually, you know, if the demand's there, like Al said, I'd love to have that problem. We the SILs would love to have that come up. We've been preparing for this for a long time. A couple of SILs are still working hard to staff up properly and so forth, but I need to hear about that if there's an area that, you know, we need to do a little more, but we're going to be ready for the demand. We are now. And, you know, it's interesting because when these students leave high school, they're going to be hopefully going to be our DVRS anyway. So this is just earlier. And it's really a change. It's a shift to earlier. And so the demand in the beginning, obviously, will increase, I hope, and we hope. And then we continue working with the students after high school. So, you know, we've made a commitment to Alice and DVRS. We've made a commitment to ourselves, to the schools that we're currently in, and we have to, you know, really sustain that and maintain that. So again, just not to repeat myself, it would be a wonderful problem to have.
And I think, just to jump in, this is Luke again. I think the SILs are unique in the fact that we are flexible. We can expand and do things that maybe a typical organization cannot do. So we have grown because of this. We've added a part-time person to work on this program, and yeah, she's doing great. And I can see if this expands, she'll be full-time, and maybe someone else will be part-time. So we have that flexibility to expand and really meet the need that's out there. And that's an important aspect of SIL, that we are able to you know, just expand, and we are flexible to meet the demand.
Like Luke said, all of our staffs are growing. So I know our staff, we've been sort of leaders, our SIL in the state with the previous programs and this program, and all of our staffs are growing with the centers. So I just wanted to reinforce what Luke said.
And I just want to say that we are continually training people, you know, to be up to par on, you know, employment services and transition. So it's people are always being trained and always learning. So that's really to meet the demand of, you know, of this program.